Hey, Algebra 2. So today we're going to talk about our performance final. So a couple of things. Performance finals on Monday, November 16th during your Zoom session. So if you don't log into your Zoom session, this is 5% of your grade. So if you miss it, automatic 5 points deducted from your total average. There's going to be 3 options to pick from for the questions, and you're going to pick 2. Okay, and so you're going to write down your answers and take a picture of it and post it to question 1. Okay, so this means that you're going to have 2 questions that are going to, or 2 questions that are going to be empty. Okay, and you're going to only have 1 hour, so you got to move pretty quickly. If yours looks identical to someone else's performance final, you will automatically get a 0. So if yours looks identical to somebody else's, like verbatim, then automatically you get a 0. So make sure that you do your work. Okay? All right. So starting with number 1, remember you are graded on communication, content, and reasoning. Okay? So just keep that in mind. I would have the problem written down. I always want to write the problem. Please don't assume that I know which problem you're doing. There's multiple versions of this test, which means that you have to write the problem down. Okay? So if I'm going to add this, I'm probably going to use some color. I'm going to say 4 plus 6 and 2i plus negative 8i. And I'm going to say 4 plus 6 is 10. And I can write this out. And 2i minus 8i is going to give me negative 6i. And so we always write real first and then complex. So I would say a couple of things about this. If you want to use bullet points, that's okay. You don't really have to write in complete sentences, but it needs to make sense. So for instance, I would say I identified real and complex, or real and imaginary, like terms. Okay? Alright. Number 2. Subtracting complex numbers. So I've got 5 plus 10i minus 3 minus 4i. Alright, so the first thing I want to do on this is distribute. And I'm going to get 5 plus 10i minus 3 plus 4i. And then I'm going to identify those real and complex. I'm sorry, there shouldn't be an I right here. Okay. So 5 minus 3 is going to give us 2. And 10i plus 4i is going to give me 14i. Again, real always comes first, so real plus imaginary. So then we identified real and imaginary. I always say complex when it's imaginary. And then combined terms. And again, it doesn't have to be super drawn out because you do only have an hour, and we're understanding of that. But you should kind of just like give me your steps and tell me like why things happen. Okay? The more information you tell me, the more points I can kind of give you. So you want to tell me as much information about your stuff that you can. Number 3, multiplying complex numbers. So this is going to be 4 plus 2i times 3 minus 7i. So you can do this either 2 ways. You can do the box method or you can do it the FOIL method. I'm going to do it the FOIL method. I know y'all don't like the box. So 12 minus 28i and 6i minus 14i squared. And again, I would probably use these arrows, and you can use color to help you out with this. Up to you. The more explaining you do, which that color explains a lot to me, so that's your communication piece. Get more points on that, the better you're going to be. So then I'm going to identify my combine like terms or like terms. And so I'm going to bring down this 12. And I'm going to combine these, which is going to give me negative 22i. And then I've got this I squared that I'm going to change to a negative 1. So this will become 12 plus 14i and then minus 22i. Combine like terms. Boom. And so I'm going to list out these steps. Distribute. Identify like terms. I squared equals negative 1. Simplify. Boom. Okay. And if there's more that you want to add to this or tell me more about, complex numbers, that's fine too. Okay. And then finally, knowing what a complex number is and being able to identify parts of it. So a complex number is real and imaginary numbers added, subtracted together. Please make sure that you have good handwriting. I'm writing on a mimeopad, so that's a little difficult. And then for identifying the parts, if I have A plus BI, that is your real for A, and then B is your imaginary. And then if you can tell me more about imaginary, that can kind of give you some more communication. Where does imaginary numbers come from? That kind of thing. So this is the piece that you can kind of just like flourish and get some more communication and communication and content points for. Okay, so that's just one of the questions that you could have chosen. So I'm going to show you how to do the other ones really quick. Alright, so for polynomials, you're going to multiply these out, factor, graph, and then know what multiplicity is and how we use it to graph polynomials. So we're going to multiply. I'm sorry, I should rewrite this. You can use the box method, it's okay. So that's going to give me 125x cubed, 150x, and then I'll do that one off the top of my head. Sorry. And then this is going to be multiplied this way. And 36 times negative 6 is going to give me negative, whatever that was, 216. Okay. And then I'm going to identify my like terms. And this should be squared. Okay. So this will be those two. And those two. Oh, they all simplifies, and when you combine them, they cancel out. So that's going to give you 125x cubed minus 216. Boom. Okay. All right, on the next one, and again, you're going to want to explain this. So all these little steps that I'm talking about, that's what you're writing out. Like you're saying little bullet points about it. You're telling me as much information as possible. Now, solve all of the problems and then go back and do that. So just leave some space to write all that stuff out. Okay? Factoring. So you got 5x squared plus 90x plus 400. These all are divisible by 5, so I'm going to take out the greatest common factor of 5. Because, I'm not sitting here and trying to figure out what factors of 2,000 is. Okay, so I'm going to take 90 divided by 5. Oh, I'm sorry. Not having the lock key on is probably important, just saying. Okay, and then 400 divided by 5 is going to give me 80. Sorry, that's my dog in the background. Okay, so now I'm going to take this, and what I'm going to do, what I normally have done, is do the big X, and that's going to be A times C, which is going to give me 80, and B is going to give me 18. So now I'm going to sit there and say, all right, what two numbers will make that happen? Remember, I'm going to list out factors of 80 if that helps, or I can go into my graphic calculator and figure out factors of 80. So I'm just going to do a couple. Well, 8 and 10 make this happen, right? Because if I add them together, I get 18. And you can actually do the box on this part. So you're going to get x squared here, 10x here, 8x here, and 80. And hopefully at this point you know how to factor. We're going to pull the greatest common factor from each row and column. And if you need an explanation for this, talk to your teacher. So this will be if I wrote it out in factored form. Okay, and again, you're explaining to me this is how you factor. Okay, it does not have to be in like full sentences. We're looking for just like little blurbs. It's just got to make sense. Okay, now on number 3, it says graph the following polynomial. Okay, I actually want you to graph this. So you're gonna draw it, but if a rough sketch is totally acceptable because we haven't really worked graphing yet. So if I'm working off of what we've done for this past week, remember these are my zeros. So I'm going to have a 0 at -3, -1, and 3. Notice how I switched the sign of each of these. Okay? And then those exponents tell me the multiplicity, right? So cross, bounce, and cross. So we know that this is going to be a 4th degree polynomial and it's facing up. So we're going to cross, bounce. Ooh. Nobody corrected me. Nobody. I'm just kidding. This is a -1. So down, cross, bounce, cross. Okay, and this is the sketch. Obviously, I would take my graphic calculator, throw those in, and then give you like a more accurate, because that would be super detailed. But then you want to explain how to graph it. And there's multiple ways to do it. Now, if you put it in your graphic calculator, that's not going to be super helpful. So make sure you mention something about these zeros. All right, and then for number 4, it says that knowing what multiplicity is and how we use to graph polynomials. So multiplicity is the exponent of the factor, or how many times it appears as a factor in a polynomial. You want to make sure that you give me an example and kind of describe that example. So for instance, please don't use this one. Okay, -1 is going to have a multiplicity of 2. And -5 is going to have a multiplicity of 1. Okay, and I'm going to say it shows up twice. So really this could be rewritten as x plus 1 times x plus 1. Okay, again, those are 2 options that you can do on the performance final. Either that first question, that second question. I'm about to do another one. But you pick 2 out of the 3. Okay, so don't fret that you got to do all of this. But that took me about 15 minutes. Remember, you got an hour to do all of this, and you're really just like giving me more of an explanation. Leave yourself about 5 minutes for that upload so that you can upload it into eClass on that first question. Okay, catch you in the next video.